Commission's Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 meeting. If we'd all please first rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening. To my immediate right is Brian Rivard. Brian's an alternate, but as Mr. Fitzsimmons is not here this evening, he'll be sitting in for Mr. Fitzsimmons. And next to Brian is is Jeff Cohan. And to my immediate left is J.P. Benoit, our Vice Chairperson of the Commission. Next to J.P. is Steve Allenson, our Secretary. Next to Steve is David Parent, also an alternate on the Commission. And next to David is Joseph Sanders, also an alternate. And at the lower table to my left is Cheryl Ann Tubby, our Recording Secretary. Next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, our Town Planner. Our first order of business is to consider approval of the minutes of our August 12th, 2024 meeting. Does any commission members have any comments, any corrections, any additions to those minutes? If there's none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the August 12th, 2024 Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rivard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Also, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jim Seichter, and I'm the chairperson of this commission. Before we go to our first item on the agenda, just want to announce that item number 2, which is a public hearing, special permit residential apartment building, 166 Quinnipiac Street, will not be heard this evening. So there'll be no action taken on that. Which brings us to our first item that we'll hear this evening. It's continuation of a public hearing for a special permit car wash to Dealer Tow Yard, One Source Towing and Repair, Comar, at 130 Dudley Avenue. If the applicant would please come forward to begin to prepare for his presentation. And Mr. Allenson, would you please note any additional correspondence for the record?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would just bear with me for a second to get through, because the majority of this is digital, unfortunately.
Actually, Steve, I think this is the only one, because this is just a continuation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologize for the technical difficulties. It appears that we have email correspondence from Yamin Rivera, from Kevin Pagini to Yamin Rivera, dated August 16th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. And if the applicant would please continue his presentation. Sir, if you could pull it just a little bit closer to you so we can pick you up. Push the button and pull it a little closer. When it's green,
Okay,
you're good.
how about, good? Okay.
You're good.
Yep, so my name is Yamin Rivera. I'm a resident in North Haven. And I'm trying to move into this facility on 130 Dudley Avenue. And the facility is not going to be, I came here last time thinking it was going to be a full operation that's going to happen over there, but I'm not going to really be operating the facility. I don't have the employees to do so. I do need the facility for a license, though, whether it's a repair license or it's a dealer's license. I did state on the site map how many vehicles can possibly be parked there. If more vehicles are going to be parked in this facility, I will have to come back for a modification.
But what exactly are your intentions to operate the facility? I know you told us in a memo that you gave to us, you said you're going to need it to store, vehicles. If you have basically you said that you need the facility to acquire a repairs dealer's license for, as most vehicles are going to be stored on the east at the East Haven location, and any overflow will be brought to the Wallingford to store until the owners pick them up. Because you were looking, you'd indicated you needed that because you were looking to enter into, I guess, an arrangement with the Wallingford, town of Wallingford, which is our police department, and have it as a tow yard. Is that still your intention, or what is your intention
Yeah,
now?
it's actually the opposite. So if we exceed the 8 to 10 vehicles, then it's the opposite. They won't be stored there. They'll be stored in East Haven. Because East Haven, we have 20 acres. This facility we have, I don't know.
No, but I guess, is it still your intention, though, is what you're looking to do is to enter into an agreement with the town of Wallingford Police Department to be in I guess, an official,
That's
So-
one of the the goals here. Yes. Second goal is to just have a facility to operate our tow business, whether it's for the insurance companies or AAA or whoever our customers are. It's just so we could have a better location. And yes, the police department is going to be one of our goals there.
okay. So, again, the facility is then going to specifically be and only used to store vehicles that you've towed. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the facility right now is not really proper to staff anybody. It has a very, very small office that I don't see anybody comfortably, sitting there and operating there on an 8-hour shift. It's just not doable. There will, if we were to operate this facility, there's some serious modifications that would need to be done to the building.
And when you were here last month, you talked about renting out U-Haul trucks or something like that. I take it now you're not intending to do that. It's simply going to be a tow yard. Is that correct?
It's simply going to be, we're a U-Haul dealer. U-Haul fluctuates. It's very slow right now. It was a possibility to offset our lease there, but with the amount of space that's in this place, I don't see U-Haul being a possibility there, because it will require for me to staff at least one person there.
So again, right now, just so I'm clear, because again, it was a little confusing, maybe to me, the last time that you were here, exactly what you were planning to do at this facility. So just so I'm clear that it's just simply, it's going to be to store overflow vehicles that are towed. Is that correct?
Correct.
And again, you said, is it 10 to 12 is the maximum that you've put in there?
That's what we're assuming is 10 to 12. And again, if it's more than that, we have the option to store vehicles in our East Haven location. And if we can't do any more vehicles in East Haven, then we will have to come back for a modification.
Okay. So again, what you're looking for, just to be clear, is just a maximum of 12 vehicles.
No, it's 8 to 10.
8 to, okay, a maximum of 10.
Yeah. I mean,
See, I was going to give you another 2, but okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I get confused at times. Okay, commission members with additional comments for the applicant. Yes, Mr. Parent.
I'm just trying to understand your operation. Is your whole site scrubbing bubbles, or does it extend beyond scrubbable bubbles? The property that you're going to operate your business on, is it scrubbing bubbles, or is it beyond it?
Scrubbing bubbles is what is currently operating under.
That's right.
I'm not taking over any of that.
No, but are you buying that particular parcel?
No, he does not want us. He's making me sign a non-compete. He does not want us to wash any vehicles there.
I mean, I'm not asking a question.
I'm not
Are you
understanding.
going to buy the scrubbing bubbles site?
No.
Okay. So there, where you are is south of scrubbing bubbles, but before 140 Dudley Ave.
Correct.
Okay, but you had the sign looking for the permit on scrubbing bubbles.
It will be taken down.
Okay. Now, are you going to dispatch from there?
No. We dispatch from our East Haven location.
And so the only thing, and I'm trying to get this straight, so you're looking for 10 to 12 parking spots to put any overflow that you may have from East Haven.
Correct. Any overflow that we can't store in Wallingford will be stored in in East Haven. I could give you a prime example is we're a heavy-duty towing company, so we tow tractor trailers,
Okay,
and this facility we cannot pull in there with a truck and trailer. We just don't have the turnaround space, and we don't have the storage space.
okay.
East Haven, we do.
But the ownership of this property with 10 to 12 spaces, that is what you need to get a towing agreement with the town of Wallingford. Is that right?
Correct. We need a secure location, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other commission members? Sir, just to pick up what, I guess, Mr. Perrin asked. I guess I was under the impression, so you're just leasing a portion of this property? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm leasing the whole facility. The whole
So you're leasing the entire property?
Exactly.
Okay, but the map you gave us, it shows, the car wash, which was Scrubbing Bubbles Car Wash is there.
Correct.
I mean, which is on the entire property.
Which is not?
Which is on the entire property.
It is, correct.
Yeah.
I won't be using the facility though. It's not set up for what we need.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess maybe I was, again, a little confused as far as the question that Mr. Perrin asked and how you responded to it. Again, the Scrubbing Bubbles site is 130, whatever, Dudley Avenue. You're purchasing that entire site, which on that site has Scrubbing Bubbles Car Wash, which I don't think has been operating for quite some time.
Correct.
It's simply your intention with this site that, again, has the Scrubbing Bubbles Car Wash building on it, which isn't being used. You're purchasing that entire site, and then you're looking to use that site for storage of vehicles up to 10 vehicles, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Because the facility is required by the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just want to be clear because I was a little confused, I guess, between the question and, not the question, but how you answered the question.
So just to give you more clarity, like to acquire a license, the location doesn't have to be used by the state of Connecticut, but a physical location needs to be present. It needs to be approved by the town, whether it's used or not. But it needs to be secured. It needs to be fenced in. So we would have to put a fence in there to show that we're properly storing these vehicles.
Sure, no, I understand. Again,
Okay.
I was just a little
Okay.
confused with that. All right, Mr. Pagini, any comments, any questions for the applicant?
I would just mention on the motion that number 4 be removed if he's not going to be doing a U-Haul business.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on the application? If you would, please come forward and name and address. Seeing none, I guess I'd bring it back to the applicant if he'd like to make any additional comments. Certainly you don't need to if you'd like to sum things up, but I think you're pretty clear as far as what you'd like to do now.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
pretty much
fine.
everything.
At this point in time, I've entertained a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 408-24, special permit car wash to a dealer tow yard, one source towing and repair, 130 Dudley Ave.
Second.
We have a second, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes, at this point in time, I've entertained a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 408-24, special permit request for One Source Towing LLC for a change of use by special permit to convert a car wash facility to a tow yard, truck rental, I should say tow yard, sorry, my apologies, strike out rental, tow yard facility on received documentation dated June 10, 2024, subject to 1, comments from the fire marshal's office, 2, a location of use being approved by the zoning enforcement officer, 3, that any cars are limited to the southern portion of the property and are screened according to section 6.12 outside storage, 4, increased landscaping on site as approved by the town planner, and 5, specifically for storage of 10 vehicles.
Second.
Do I have a second by Mr. Rivard? Voting beginning with Mr. Cohen, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, your application's been approved, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. All right, it brings us to our next item. Item number 3, it's public hearing, special permit, item number 3 is the zoning text amendment, WI Zone Data Center Charter Development LLC. Mr. Allison, if you please read the legal notice and then note all correspondence for the record. While he's doing that, if the applicant would please come forward to begin preparing for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 501-24, text amendments for Charter Development Group, LLC, to amend sections 4.10.c, 6.11, and 2.2 to add data centers as an allowed use by special permit, WI Watershed Interchange District. Full text available in Planning and Zoning Office. We have the application for zoning change. We have correspondence from the Economic Development Commission to the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission dated October 2nd, 2024. Correspondence from Wallingford Electric Division to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated October 7th, 2024. Inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department, dated October 2nd, 2024. Email correspondence from Allison Kapuscinski, Town Engineer, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated October 10th, 2024. And email correspondence from Nick Montanino, I apologize if I didn't get that quite right, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated October 14th, 2024. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. If the applicants would please introduce themselves and begin their presentation.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Donald Gershman. I'm here with my partner, Eric Brown, and we're the principals of Charter Development Group, LLC, the applicant for the zoning text amendment for you this evening. With us is our land use attorney, Dwight Merriam, in case there are any technical questions about the amendment, and our community outreach consultant, Chuck Corsi. We'd like to make a short presentation of about 15 minutes, and then we'd be pleased to answer any questions that you may have. This amendment will enable limited data center development only in the Watershed Interchange District, and only if this commission, following a public hearing, approves a special permit upon a demonstration that the proposal meets all of the criteria set forth in this proposed amendment, as well as the zoning ordinance generally. The Watershed Interchange District is a small industrial zone. It's located in the northeast corner of the town and is bisected by Interstate 91. The purpose of this district, quoting from your regulations, is to utilize land with accessibility to I-91 located in the Watershed Protection District in a manner designed to best protect the town's public drinking water supply resources while allowing low-intensity uses and emerging technological development. Let me repeat part of that. To best protect the town's public drinking water supply resources while allowing low-intensity uses and emerging technological development. A data center is the epitome of a low-intensity use and is at the very center of emerging technological development. Indeed, data centers are essential in supporting emerging technological development to the point where you can't have meaningful technological development without data centers. The town's Plan of Conservation and Development states that, quote, concerns have been raised that Wallingford may need to adjust its economic development strategy and its industrial land use regulations to keep pace with changing needs in the business community. Addressing these concerns can strengthen the local tax base and provide job opportunities for residents. It further states that, quote, broadening the range of potential businesses that can take advantage of Wallingford's accessible industrial lands can help attract businesses, building the tax base and local jobs. The POCD expressly recommends revising the zoning regulations for industrial districts to allow, quote, additional uses to reflect current market demands. There has been a lot of media coverage of the exponential growth of data centers driven by online business transactions and by all of our shopping, emailing, texting, watching movies, and gaming. And soon upon us are self-driving vehicles. Our internet-based emergency response networks require local data center capacity. On top of all of that existing demand, we now have the rapidly growing needs of artificial intelligence. At this time, Connecticut has only a small number of older, relatively small data centers and needs to have the physical infrastructure to compete in the information age. Connecticut will benefit by attracting to our state the major players of the information age: Google, Meta, AWS, Microsoft, Oracle. It is for this reason that the state adopted legislation to induce data centers to locate in Connecticut. But so far, only one data center has been developed under this program, and that was built by Cigna. As the Commissioner of the Department of Economic Development testified last spring, quote, it is in the states and communities where these data centers are ultimately built that the greatest economic benefits will accrue, unquote. We are well aware of the proposal made 2 years ago for a sprawling, multi-building data center complex that would have changed the character of the town. It was going to be developed over 15 or 20 years, as I recall. Eric and I attended that public hearing, heard the concerns of this community, and felt that a different approach was needed. One that by its very terms would meet the need, but not open the door to unbridled development. This approach would be to enable a limited data center development located where it would be consistent with the character of the community and in a district that has as its express purpose the encouragement of emerging technologies. Our text amendment would permit the Commission to consider a special permit for a data center of not more than 350,000 square feet that must fully comply with all of the requirements of the zoning regulations, specifically including the noise regulations of both the town and the state. In this regard, it's important to recognize that as an industrial zone, the Watershed Interchange District currently permits.
Could perhaps pull that a little bit closer to you. I think they're having maybe a little difficulty picking you up.
Okay, is that better? Okay.
Keep talking.
Okay. In this regard, it is important to recognize that as an industrial zone, the Watershed Interchange District currently permits several uses, subject only to site plan approval, that are often more impactful by several measures than a data center would be. These include food and beverage production, manufacturing, and warehousing and distribution, all of which generate far greater traffic and noise, require more parking, and will have greater environmental impact than a data center. They are appropriate for this district, we're not suggesting otherwise, but in comparison, a data center is much less impactful and entirely appropriate for this district. Because the WI district has significant watershed land, it's important to emphasize that a data center will not harm the watershed. If cooled with standard commercial air conditioning equipment, as we intend to do, there is only minimal water usage and no discharge of pollutants. The stormwater storage displaced by the footprint of the data center building, or by any new building for any use for that matter, should be compensated by stormwater detention systems that provide for the storage and controlled release of stormwater and are capable of improving the existing drainage on a site from its current condition. Let me take a step back for a moment. What is a data center? We use the term, let's explore it for a moment. Essentially, it's a warehouse building housing computers and telecommunications equipment. There are racks of file servers that receive and store, process and retransmit data from individuals and businesses. Data centers are the physical embodiment of what is colloquially referred to as the cloud. I've often joked that a data center is really just a cold storage warehouse, but instead of storing sides of beef, it stores computers. And instead of having trucks go in and out for deliveries, it silently sends its product in and out through fiber optic cables. Data centers have very few employees, most likely 15 or 20 for a peak shift. They have no regular truck traffic and no customer visitors. The noise they produce comes from commercial air conditioning equipment and emergency backup generators. Today, this equipment can be designed, mounted, and acoustically insulated for minimal sound transmission beyond the limits of the property. We engaged a national acoustical engineering firm, Cerami & Associates, and they have opined that a data center constructed in the watershed interchange district can be readily made to comply with the noise requirements of the town and of the state. Of course, in addition to addressing noise requirements, any special permit application requires a demonstration of the availability of all utilities, including electricity. In this district, all required utilities are available, and we have confirmed with both Eversource and Wallingford Electric preliminarily that sufficient electric power is available for a data center of up to 350,000 feet in the watershed interchange district. The physical appearance of a data center can be anything that you want it to be: traditional, corporate, contemporary, or high-tech. The architecture should be designed to fit the existing conditions and contours of the site selected. Great emphasis should be placed on preserving existing trees and vegetation. But because this application is for an amendment to the zoning regulations and does not relate to any particular parcel of land, we have tried to respect that distinction and have focused our remarks solely on the proposed use. If this commission approves the amendment, we will be back before you in the coming months with a carefully designed, comprehensive proposal for a single data center building that we promise will be a good neighbor. You will have the discretion through the special permit process to decide whether any data center proposal is right for any proposed site in the watershed interchange district. This application is to enable the town of Wallingford to try a modest data center proposal, a prototype, if you will, without committing to more, and only if this commission is satisfied that all of its concerns are adequately addressed through the special permit application process. With that, I will ask my colleagues if they have anything they want to add. If not, we stand ready to answer any questions you may have. So I'll thank you for your consideration of our proposed amendment, and we do have copies of these slides for you.
Thank you, sir. Commission members with questions for the applicant. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I have several questions, I guess. You know, you're proposing a limitation of 350,000 square feet. Why did you come up, or how did you come up with that number?
We have given thought to planning a particular data center at a particular site, which we're happy to talk to you about, I suppose at another time. And we plan on developing somewhere between 300 and 350,000 square feet. So again, along the lines of our vision of this as a prototype, sort of one and done, see if you like it, we came up with a number that would allow what we're proposing. You can take it from there. If you love having a data center and want to have more, as I expect you will, you can always up that number.
So based on a maximum of 2 stories, so 350,000 divided by 2 is 175. So what would be the footprint of that 175? You know, what would be the length, what would be the width of that proposed data center?
Again, we don't have a proposed data center in front of you, obviously. We are talking about a building with a footprint of 150, 160,000 square feet, thereabouts.
I'm Dwight Merriam. I'm the lawyer for this project. My offices are at 80 Latimer Lane in Simsbury. An analog might be a Home Depot with a garden center, about 140, typically, that order of magnitude, if you want to have a visual of the size of a structure.
Yeah, I'm still looking for length and width. I know what Home Depot looks like, but I don't think that is 175,000. I think that's probably less. So is it, 1,000 feet by 75 feet? What?
We're seeing if we can find that for you. We have some very preliminary drawings. We can see order of magnitude, so we'll hope to come back to that in a few minutes.
Okay. While you're looking that up, in your presentation, you did mention how Connecticut jumped on the data center bandwagon years ago, and basically that was a response to, I believe it was either New York or New Jersey or both states thinking about putting a financial tax on transactions with the computer systems. And a lot of the people using data centers in those 2 states rebelled and said they were going to move. So Connecticut said, well, if they're going to move, let's make an incentive to move here. Subsequently, those 2 states backed off that tax. In your presentation, you did mention that there's really been only one data center, and I think you mentioned Cigna. It's not a spec data center, expecting to host Amazon or Google or Meta. So why is that? Why has only, and Cigna's a corporate data center, so that was their decision. So why hasn't any other supplier built a data center in Connecticut?
Well, as you know, there are others who've looked at it, including in Wallingford 2 years ago. There's a proposal pending down in East Lyme that's gotten some press. And there's others I hear about, maybe the people are thinking about it. There is demand, and I do believe that players will step forward to try to build them to meet this demand. Now, there are constraints about needing to be near major fiber optic lines, major power supplies, things like that, which limit geographically where data centers can readily go. But the demand is growing, and the demand for localized data centers is growing. Because even though electricity travels at the speed of light, there's this concept in the data center world called latency. The fraction of a second for the data to get from where it's starting to where it's going, if you can cut that in half, it has value to some users that need real time. I mean, and if you imagine a world in which we have self-driving vehicles, where you have thousands of cars being controlled all at one time, that kind of latency can become a factor. So I believe there will be demand.
And to remember how to do square roots. 420 by 420 feet is the answer to your question.
I'm sorry?
420 by 420 equals 175,000.
I actually believe our prototype is a little bit smaller than that, but that would probably be the maximum on it.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think my last comment, and actually you mentioned the presentation would be available. I'd appreciate that for, I think, next meeting.
We have them to give you tonight.
Yeah, so we can comment on it
Sure.
for next meeting. Because, yeah, a lot of things you mentioned, I didn't have time to write them down, and I do have comments on a lot of what you said. But the last comment I'll have for tonight is there has been a tremendous amount of pushback from numerous cities across the country because of the low-level rumbling noise, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of concern with a very low-intensity output from, the machines humming, the drives in the data center. There seems to be a adverse impact to, and I forget what the distance is from, adjacent to the data centers. And that's really one thing that is missing in this text amendment. But what are your feelings, remedies on this low-level noise emission from data centers? What's your take on that?
I think the answer is that the technology for mounting and acoustically insulating equipment, as well as newer types of equipment, has reduced noise generation. And again, this is an industrial zone, and we believe that we will be within the current, we know we will be within the current requirements for buildings in industrial zone, and indeed, we believe we will be quieter than some uses that are currently permitted with just a site plan approval. We think we will be an innocuous, unnoticed, unremarkable use. We're not aware of any rumble issue, is the direct answer to your question.
Okay. It's still a concern, I think, that is still up in the air with, again, proposed and existing data centers across the country. There still are a lot of questions on that. So, again, that's my concern right now. And, I don't know if there is a definitive answer, but I think it needs to be more than we're going to meet, the existing noise requirements.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cohen. Other commission members? Mr. Rivard.
Good evening, guys. My questions are a little more related to maybe we have a recommendation here from economic development, supporting this. One thing I'm interested in is there follow-on benefits to having a data center locally such that, is it good for other businesses to be located nearby them, or is this just kind of, you take up a footprint and it's there and we're using land for this? Does it spawn other things to be nearby? That's question one. And then the other question I have is, you mentioned sites that are beneficial, for this, a data center use require, obviously, high levels of electrical power. That could be revenue to the town, but it also could be a draw on, what percent use is it relative to what we are using today, because we have infrastructure requirements to support. And then the other one is, you mentioned you need, I'll say, significant fiber optic access. Is, Wallingford already positioned for that? Where does that exist? Is that one of the reasons why, Wallingford is a good site, because it's on I-91? Like, can you describe those two things?
We've had conversations with both Wallingford Electric and with Eversource. We have, by the way, in addition to needing power and needing fiber, we need redundant power and redundant fiber. We need 2 feeds for each of these. There are multiple sources available, which is to say pathways through public rights-of-way to provide power to the site we're ultimately going to propose. The way it works with Eversource is they give you preliminary information, and then when you write them a large check, they actually study the situation and come back and tell you the improvements to their system that are needed to, at our expense, obviously, to enhance certain weak points or weak links in the delivery of power from their grid through Wallingford Electric to our site. So it's an iterative process. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves, obviously, because if data centers aren't going to be permitted in the WI district, we don't want to have spent that money, right? But certainly, assuming you agree that it's a well-conceived use for this site, for this zone, we will have a lot of those answers available necessarily for a special permit hearing. I'm sorry, there were other parts to that, I don't remember.
Yeah, and the first part was, you mentioned there's only 15 to 20 people who get employed by this type of business. Otherwise, it just kind of sits on a footprint. Is there benefits to other businesses, technological or otherwise, to be located closer to a data center versus far away? I mean, the Internet of Things is the cloud, right? So it's all out there. You can connect up to a data center out in California and not know where you're at. But you mentioned certain, parameters that are measured. Do high-tech companies have interest in being located nearby data centers, I guess is a more pointed way to ask the question.
I think the way I'd answer it is that the tech companies that operate data centers want to be distributed in different areas and not all be in one place. Part of it is for localized function with less latency, and part of it is to back up their own systems in the event of something calamitous. If something happened in Northern Virginia, they can't have everything stored in Northern Virginia, right? So there are multiple reasons. It's not so much a benefit to local businesses as it is an industry demand to have distribution of data centers.
Thank you.
I could add, I think there's a benefit to Wallingford Electric from the fees that are generated through the electricity that's provided to the data center, which may well benefit all of the ratepayers in the district.
Yeah, thanks. Understand.
Thank you. Other commission members? Mr. Allenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick questions. One of the parts of the amendment talks about sound, and this is just something to think about. We've, as you mentioned, been down this data center road before, and I believe in one of the prior text proposals we had, there was a sound impact study that was there there was a peer review portion there. I didn't see that in this amendment, and I'm just wondering, and you don't have to answer tonight, but it's just something that I'd like to see if you'd be willing to consider adding to this amendment. The other issue is we heard significant testimony on previous applications regarding impact to environment, impact to wildlife, impact to neighbors, and whether there's a environmental impact study that could be done as part of an application. In my limited experience here on planning and zoning, the more data and the more impact studies we have for new stuff, and this is new. It's not new, but it's new, right? The more data we have, the better equipped we are to determine its applicability. So those are two things that I'd like to see considered and maybe addressed as where things go. That being said, I'll give you a moment to think about it, and I have one easy question in the meantime, an easy one.
Well, I'll look forward to the easy one. The answer is understanding all the ramifications of acoustics and understanding all the ramifications to the environment. We think these are non-issues with engineering today and the way we're going to be building what we want to build. But the burden is on us to prove that to you. And we think the time and place to prove that to you is at the special permit level. Tell us that you'll entertain the idea of a data center in this one little corner of the town, right, that is already an industrial zone, and asks for, by your own regulations and by the POCD, new and emerging technologies. The burden's on us to convince you that in every way possible, this will be beneficial to the town, and similarly, it will not be detrimental to the town. There will not be rumble. There will not be environmental damage. There will not be, and we will have, as I mentioned, we've already retained a high-level acoustic engineering firm. They will be here at a special permit hearing. They can talk about the background studies they've already done, even at this point, and they will talk about the state-of-the-art engineering for data centers. Much of what is out there in the mythology of data centers are early data centers, right? I mean, if you talk about car safety and you compare a 2024 car to a car from the 1960s, there's no comparison. They're still both cars, but new cars have better features and better engineering. And I would submit that data centers have evolved as well, even from 2 years ago. Even from 2 years ago. So if you'd allow us, we intend to more than satisfy all of your questions in these regards. We think they're exactly the right questions. We agree the burden is on us to satisfy them. We just think that the special permit hearing is the place to do it. And if we don't satisfy you, thumbs down, don't approve it.
Understood, and I appreciate that. So a special permit by right, the way I understand it, and Mr. Pagini, please correct me if I get this wrong. A special permit by right would give us as the commission the ability to say, hey, we want a sound study. We want an environmental impact study. We can set those as conditions of approval. Am I correct?
Yes, the
Special
applicant would have to agree to those if they aren't put into the text amendment.
Correct.
If they are put into this, then you can require them prior.
And what I'm thinking is we can do that as an as-needed basis or as we feel that it's needed. What I'm saying to you tonight is I think that based on the information that I've seen on this commission, I think that those are studies that I think if we had language in the text amendment that said specifically that as a part of this special permit for data centers, the commission may request this, and that way it's out there, it's known to both the applicant, to the public, and to the commission that these are, it's already there, but I think making it clear would be, I think, beneficial to all.
Excuse me one second.
Dwight Merriam speaking. That would be fine. It's one of those things, as Don says, sort of goes without saying because you can request it, and any applicant would be foolish not to give it to you, okay? If you said, we'd like a little more on the environment, any applicant that really wants an approval is going to step up. We have a top-notch acoustics engineering firm. They have given us a letter that we're going to give you. It's not in the record yet, right, is it? We're going to give you that says any data center can meet the terms of your noise ordinance, if it's done right, okay? So, but it wouldn't be unusual to have a peer review. I don't know if you saw us before talking with one of our traffic engineering friends back here, and when I've worked with him and somebody said, you know, we want our own review of that. Sometimes the town will get a peer review. If you want the applicant to have a peer review of their own, whatever it is, traffic study, in this case noise, that's a reasonable request, and any good applicant is going to provide it. But I think it would be perfectly fine. Perfectly fine to add to the proposal. An applicant for data center will provide a detailed acoustics report. If you think a peer review is helpful, you could require that, a second person to look at it, or you get your own consultant. And as to an environmental impact review, that's fine too. We probably want, before the continuation, to give you a draft of what that amendment would look like so that your staff could look at it, and then you can consider it, because this is exactly what a public hearing is for. I'm glad you asked for it, because too often the commissions will close the hearing without sort of negotiating what they really want out of an amendment. So it's a minor amendment, easily done. We'll craft it with the chairs and the commission's permission, provide it to staff, and they can send it on to the commission in time for you to review it prior to the continuation of the hearing.
Thank you. And I'm proposing language where it's permissive. If it's deemed appropriate, we may ask. Not that it's mandatory on every single application of this, but that if we ask for it, now it's in the language, there's no surprises, it's there. Not that, as he said, this would be surprising anyways, but I think it provides clarity.
Great.
Now to my easy question.
Here we go.
Easy question, and I'm sorry to belabor that one. Section 2A, cumulative, total floor area of all data centers shall not exceed 350,000 square feet of gross floor area. Under the definition of data center, it says a data center may include a substation and related equipment as accessory uses. Is the substation and accessory uses included in that 350,000 square foot, or is that additional accessory use in additional to that 350,000?
Thank you for that easy question. The answer is no, it's not part of it, because those are, the 350,000 square feet refers to a maximum square footage for the data center building, not the substation or ancillary equipment.
Can you clean that up in the language, please, so that it's clear that
Sure.
that the definition says a data center may include substation-related equipment as accessory uses, which is not part of the 350, however you want to do it.
Thank you. We
You
will
guys
do
are the
that.
applicant.
Sure.
I just think it's a question.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other commission members? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions. One to loop back to a question that Commissioner Rivard asked about, is the necessary fiber optic capacity already built? I didn't recall if that was clearly answered.
We've been in touch with 2 or 3. Oh, yeah. We had a, thank you. CBRE, the major real estate firm, has a division in Boston that studies fiber optics, and we have a report from them, which we'd be happy to share with you. Sorry. that makes it clear that there are several different providers, several different pathways to have more than enough fiber capacity for our project and redundancy.
So are you saying that it's there now, or there's
Yes.
ability to build it?
It's there now.
It's there now. So there wouldn't be further disruption to bring that into the facility. It's there already.
My understanding.
I think the answer is that it's nearby and can be brought to the facility just in the same way that electricity can be brought to the facility.
Okay.
With minimal impact.
Gotcha. All right, thanks for that. And the second question, this is, I think, a bit of a deeper issue, but one of the constitutional protections that we enjoy as American citizens is the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. And data has become part of that area, and used to think that stuff like that was conspiracy theory, and unfortunately there's probably more things that go on than we're told. Is there, I'm just curious if there might be some ways to either put into the zoning text regulations safeguards to try to do our job to protect those in our community when the government sometimes steps in to do things that when you find out they shouldn't have been doing. Perhaps that could be something like a list of approved uses or customers, or perhaps a list of restrictions on types of data that the data centers are not permitted to handle. I just don't know if you guys have any experience with that or thoughts on that.
The direct answer is no, we don't have any experience with that. As a citizen, I share your concern in the broader sense. We are not going to be operating the data center. We're in the real estate business. We are going to be developing and building a box. Within that box, there will be companies such as the ones I mentioned who will be leasing space or perhaps buying the building, and they will do what they do. And I don't think that anything that we propose, or with all due respect, anything you propose, is going to influence what Google decides to do, or AWS or Microsoft. I mean, they could decide not to come to Wallingford, but that's kind of a national issue that Congress needs to address, I think.
Dwight Merriam speaking. Let me be responsive to that, Commissioner Sanders, a little bit. When I was first retained, I looked for every regulation I could find in the country for data center regulation. I happen to be a planner as well as a lawyer, so it was easy for me to find them all. I never saw a provision like that. Doesn't mean it shouldn't or shouldn't be done necessarily, but there isn't any regulation like that in the country. Number two is that it'd be very difficult to enforce. Like a zoning enforcement officer, if it was a zoning condition, it would be an impossible job for them to find it, enforce it, and whatever. And number three is, if you consult with your town attorney, I think you'll find that probably what you would desire to have in terms of oversight and restrictions on the use of a data center is beyond the power of the state zoning enabling legislation. You don't have that authority to do that. It's not in there. So those three things: number one, nobody's ever done it. Number two, it's impossible, in my judgment, as a land use lawyer of some experience, that it would be impossible to enforce. And number three, you may not have the legal, you almost certainly do not have the legal authority to include that in a zoning provision. As much as you might like it, it is desirable in our society as it may be. I personally and professionally share those same concerns with you, but not within your jurisdiction.
Other commission members? Just a couple of questions, or first couple of comments. You gentlemen mentioned that you attended the public hearings that we had, I guess a year ago, perhaps more than a year ago, when we were talking about data centers. And certainly out of that, I'm sure you realized or took away from it some of the things that Mr. Allenson was talking about, as far as the concerns from the commission as well as concerns from the members of the public. The first was, I think as Mr. Allenson pointed out, sound, but also sound vibrations kind of picks up with Mr. Cohan. Other areas that they were concerned about, because we do have surrounding the IW zone residential. So we're talking about, screening for residential properties, also setbacks. I don't see any of that that you're proposing from a screening standpoint, from setbacks from residential properties. Certainly, and I'm sure you have, copies of what we had discussed as far as the regulation. Certainly some of the things that, Mr. Allenson had spoken about, and again, you'd indicated that you can include, we have every intention of meeting all of the requirements, and the commission can request various things, but I think as Mr. Allenson pointed out, if we're going to consider this as a use, it'd be much better to include the things that perhaps the commission would want if this were approved at a public hearing to discuss a specific application, to have that a part of the initial regulation. So again, the things that I would like you, because again, we're not going to act on this evening. We're going to have members of the public who will be commenting on that and giving you their, in the commission, their input. But what I'd like to see is for you folks to take a closer look at what the commission was at least proposing for a regulation to allow data centers, and look more closely at that to incorporate some of that language and some of those requirements into it. So we have a much more, at least what I would say, a comprehensive application to consider. That would be my suggestion. With that, Mr. Pagini, do you have any comments?
No further comments at this time.
Okay. At this point in time, this is a public hearing. Any members of the public who would like to comment on the application, please feel free to come forward. What I would like to say is that, we are not going to be taking, any action on this application this evening. So just to make that clear. But again, we're here to entertain comments from the public. And I guess I'd like to start on this side of the auditorium. Is there anyone in the outer reaches there that would like to comment? And then we'll just move over. So again, could I just a show of hands? And again, sir, please, come forward, state your name and your address, and then we'll just move across the auditorium.
Ed Bradley, 2 Hampton Trail. I really didn't want to go first.
Oh, you should have said
I should have known better that you always start on this side.
Exactly, Mr. Bradley.
I didn't purposely
sir, it's not my
there.
fault. It's yours. Or at least sit farther back.
Okay, let me start by an opening statement. I know where this is going if passed. My questions are, who was the author of the text amendments?
That we're considering this evening?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the applicant.
As far as who proposed this from the town side?
Well, again, I let the applicant answer that, but my assumption would be the applicant most likely approached the town or approached our Economic Development Commission, but I let these gentlemen respond.
That's correct.
Let me comment on the EDC. They had a meeting on the 23rd of September. The agenda said charter development. Never mentioned data centers. Okay. They did talk about data centers. I dug for the minutes of that meeting. Nothing was posted online, which is up to them. The town clerk had nothing of their minutes. I went up to the office yesterday and asked if they had copies of the minutes. They printed off a copy. Remember, the 23rd of September and yesterday. 7 days you got to post minutes by FOI. Is this transparency from the EDC?
Yeah, Mr. Bradley, again, I can't answer that question, but I know you have you have questions and concerns about the EDC, but this is the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Bradley, so
Well,
we're
no,
but let me finish, please, sir.
Okay.
What we're focusing on is the application that's before us now. It's not how the EDC is conducting its business, whether or not it's posted its minutes properly or not. That's an issue for you to discuss with the EDC, sir.
Okay. What I will suggest, you do read the minutes.
Sure.
They're online now. I'm sure you remember GotSpace in 2021, where they were proposing 10 data centers, 3 in the watershed area. And again, like I mentioned there, and the applicant mentioned also that the Muddy River flows through there. It provides 94% of the town's drinking water. And again, I'll mention, probably more for inland wetlands, is the flooding downstream. I know a gentleman from Charter contacted me 3 times and left messages. And I didn't get back to him because I have over 50 years experience in data centers. One particular item I was in charge of was disaster recovery. And we would go to New Jersey, SunGuard Systems, to perform our disaster recovery plan. Now, that facility is located in the Meadows in New Jersey by Giant Stadium, not near any neighborhoods like this will be. Now, as far as data centers, It's well known that these data centers are beasts when it comes to resources, water, electric, and also someone mentioned the hum. And it's very well documented that that's out there. And what I wanted to mention was a website that you can research, and it's called What's All the Noise About? And the Neighbors Complaining. If you go out there, there is a graphic dB sound wave of 3 levels. The top one is a data center. The bottom one is a neighborhood. Now, the proposed data center, is this anywhere near the Hilton Garden Hotel?
Well, at this point, Mr. Bradley, we're looking at, from in the WI district. That's what this application for is right now, is for the entire district. So we're not, at this point in time, focusing
So
on a
it's
specific.
the entire area?
Yeah, we're not,
Okay.
we're not looking to focus on a specific site. We're looking at the entire WI district, which this, if amendment would be approved rather, it would allow for, a data center or data centers, again, no more than 350 in total in anywhere within the WI zone.
Right. And my recommendation for the town would be to purchase this land as open space to protect our drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Other members of the public, on the right side, and then we'll move over to the center portion.
My name is Joan Rinkovich. I live at...
Feel free to just pull that down a little bit and maybe...
I'm Joan.
There you go.
51 Grebe Trail, Wallingford, not far from Ed Bradley, who Hampton Trail meets Grebe. It's the first thing I ever heard of this. I have no idea. And I have no idea what I'm talking about except from a general person. I've lived there 44 years. Enjoyed it. My question, too, was, where the heck are you going to fit this? And Ed mentioned the Hilton, which we're in their backyard. And I kind of like the woods to be where they are and the stream where it is. Ed had enough trouble with flooding all these years. What now, And my other thing is, why do you need a database? Number one, the world's a mess as it is, and we don't need more technology infiltrating our neighborhood. And yes, where is it going to be? I don't know what the WI is, nothing like that. And as he says, it's going to be in back of the Hilton. Well then, if it's going to be in back of the Hilton, and I like the Hilton being there, but that's it, because my family can stay there overnight. Where are you going to fit it? Well, now we've got our deer, we've got people's yards, so you're just going to build a fence to hide this building. And my third thing is, There are empty buildings on Research Parkway. Why can you not use one of those? Or just knock those down and build your own 350,000 square feet, I think it is, you said. That's ridiculous. It doesn't fit in our neighborhood at all. We like the pastoral look of it, the whole place. And it's, but I know AT&T said something about, maybe even 10 years ago, towers and all this stuff. And also all this electricity or these sound waves, can that cause cancer? We just don't need this thing to even start. And I just learned about this yesterday, so excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, yes, we'll start with the lady in the front, and then we'll move back on that section if there's other people who would like to comment.
Hi. First, I want to thank all you guys. I'm usually quite proud of the decisions that you make, so I want you to know I'm still on your side. I do live, my name is Anne Marie Brousseau. I live at 656 Williams Road, which is, it's about a quarter mile up from 68. I very much appreciate Steve's questions about the testings that you're considering. I'd like you to keep in mind the wildlife that we have here. We have a resident bobcat that lives in my backyard. It's been there for over 10 years. It reproduces more bobcats every year, so keep in mind they're there, and cats tend to be very sensitive to frequencies, so please pay attention to that when you're writing these tests that you want to do. I am in favor of having a data center in Wallingford. I think that it would benefit the town, but I don't know that having it near the residential section, especially across the street from my house, is such a good idea. We do, as my neighbor previously mentioned, we do have the industrial park, which is right over there, and there probably are locations there better suited to that. But if you please pay attention to the sensitivities of the animals. Now, in addition to the bobcat, I have seen mountain lions, coyotes, plenty of birds. There's quite a lot of wildlife there. So please keep them in mind when you're making your decisions and deciding on your tests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, moving farther back, are there any other individuals on this side of the auditorium that would like to comment on the application? Seeing none on the center to the left, any individuals? And then moving to the left here, we'll start with, again, I don't see, sir, okay. Sir, if you'd come forward then, please. Name and address. Anyone else in the center portion of the auditorium? Okay. After this gentleman, we'll move over to the left.
My name is James Sibley, 3 Eaton Trail. One factor that I didn't hear too much about is that if you take away 350,000 square feet of natural sponge in that area, you have to remember that there's a lot of wetlands in that area, and the water from that wetland goes where? It goes south right to Mackenzie Reservoir. So now, if you take 350,000, up to 350,000 square feet for a building, a roadway, parking lot, maybe you're up to 400,000. I don't have any idea of what it could be, but if you take away all that area that right now is a natural sponge and filtration system for the water that's up in that area, which goes to Mackenzie Reservoir, something is not right with that situation. You have to remember, if they build a 350,000 square foot building, you have all that rainwater coming down. Now, are they going to put a retention pond in on that property? A filtration system? It's a problem that I see that should be done. Something should be done about it. Not that I don't want to bring up an old subject, but you have to remember what happened to Bristol Myers. Bristol Myers ruined Spring Lake. When they were building Bristol Myers, there was so much silt coming into Spring Lake that it ruined it, in my opinion. Well, anyways, you have to remember that the environment is an important situation in this area. Thank you, and that's all.
Thank you, sir. Yes, again, would you like to comment?
Good evening, Mary Lopresti, 16 Grebe Trail. Thank you for the work that you do in protecting our wonderful town. We have planning and zoning regulations so that we provide a wonderful quality of life for our businesses and our citizens of Wallingford. And my concern is twofold. One, that you'll be impacting an area that has great environmental resources for our community. It feeds into Spring Lake, which ultimately feeds into Mackenzie Reservoir. I've seen many eagles nesting in the area that's bordering Route 68 to Williams Road, and it also borders a large residential area. So to have such a structure where people reside, live, play, have their peace for quality of life concerns me. Also, making changes to zoning regulations. Zoning regulations are in place to protect our community. You set precedents, and I certainly would like to see the integrity of our community maintained. And thank you again for the work you do.
Thank you. Again, just one final time in the center of the auditorium, anyone that would like to come forward and comment. Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to the left, and those individuals on the left that would like to comment, please raise your hand so I can recognize you. Yes. No, young lady, I'm recognizing you.
Tired of coming here. I love you guys. This is our poor neighborhood, right? So, yeah, I appreciate that you guys.
Please, name and address, please.
I'm sorry. My name is Sonia Wolf, and I'm at 14 Oxford Trail. And so, yeah, we are in that little zone that's right. It's its own little zone, R18 zone. And it abuts the WI zone. And, you know, I appreciate what my neighbors have said about, you know, these wetlands. They're dear to us. These wetlands are dear to us. There's a lot of wildlife that comes through there. A lot of us are bird watchers. And we appreciate the ecosystem and the water filtration that comes through there. We live on Spring Lake. And it travels on out, and it is an ecosystem. So not disturbing the watershed is not something that's possible. And when I hear it, it kind of makes me angry because it seems insulting or something to say that it's not going to be disturbed. So a building of this size. So, you know, I'm concerned about the environment. I'm concerned about property values. This isn't in good character. I mean, you don't have like people in wealthy towns being like, yeah, let's put a data center next to our house that's going to improve our property value. That's not what we want. We don't want it there. We don't want it in our neighborhood. There is Research Parkway. There are industrial places to put it. I also, you know, did a bunch of, you know, I just found out about this too, and, you know, did a bunch of digging, and, you know, I saw there was one in Waterbury, a data center, and the first thing they say is it's situated safely away from major population centers, outside flood zones. You know, these are what they are advertising. So that's not the case in this. I mean, they say this little corner of Wallingford. A lot of people live in that little corner of Wallingford. You know, and I think there are going to be a lot of changes. You know, I don't love that we need so much, you know, data centers. I'm concerned about the security also around them. Don't really want that in our neighborhood. I know Yale is doing, I just, you know, was again doing some digging, and they just sent me something today, ironically, that they're doing a huge study on data centers. And they you know, about the percent of annual global energy use, and they're trying to reduce that footprint immensely. They have a multi-million-dollar research project started. So, yeah, so we don't, I think that I don't even want, we were here, you know, we were here in April of 22 when this language was turned down by you guys. It was voted down. After 7 months of intense research, public hearings, you know, so much time and effort on your guys' part, and it's almost the exact same language again. So, you know, I guess I just wish it would stop here. Like, we already did this. We don't allow data centers now in this WI zone. We don't allow it. We're not going to change the text to allow it. We already went through trying to, you know, and I also looked at all, you know, this language here. It's not just the data center, it's ancillary equipment building, including but not limited to power subsystems, telecommunications equipment, cooling systems, backup generators, substations. You know, it's not just that. Where does it end? So it's not the right place. It wasn't allowed before, you know, we went through it. It was turned down before. Like, I just wish we could not go through it again and just say, we said no and we meant no. And so that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, gentleman over there.
Jerry Lombardo, 18 Oxford Trail. I would ask the gentleman if they ever considered locations in the Research Park area, I believe it's called. In my mind, it's located near the Park and Rec. I mean, I haven't been out there in a while, but I think that there's quite a bit of open space there that would be adequate for your needs.
The applicant would like to respond to that?
Sure. Again, this hearing isn't about specifically citing a data center anywhere in particular, but in answer to your question, we did. I reached out to the company out of the Boston area that bought the Bristol-Myers facility and discussed specifically, you know, would they be interested in selling or leasing or whatever, making land available for us there, and they said no, that they have their own development plan in mind and they want to stay with that.
Anyone else? Please raise your hand. Yes.
Jack Aragoni, 18 Martin Trail. I have 3 pieces of paper: the application for zoning change, the EDC special meeting minutes, and the Wallingford Chapter 144 noise ordinance.
What was the third one that you said? Sir, if you could pull the microphone up a little bit so I can hear you.
The application for the zoning change.
Yep, have that.
And I have questions, comments, and concerns about them all. First of all, you've already answered a few of my questions. I would like to clarify one, though, that Jeff brought up. We're talking about the square footage. Are we talking about 2 stories or 1 story, 30 feet tall?
If you gentlemen would like to answer that?
2 stories.
2 stories.
Yeah, so
Okay, so it would be divided in half.
The footprint would be half of the 350,000 feet.
Okay. And the other question was about all the extra equipment, generation and substations. What kind of fuel would you be using? Is it going to be a diesel fuel, gas, natural gas? I'm concerned about that storage because I know we're talking about the entire watershed area, and that becomes a concern. I don't think you could put gas stations up there. So I'm a little concerned about what the fuel would be. Has any thought into that yet?
If you gentlemen would like to answer that, please.
I think that's getting ahead of where we are in our design process. Fair question, and will need to be addressed in the context of an application.
Okay, I think that's...
We're not there yet.
I think that's an important point. Because I assume you have to plan on a few days worth of outage. The heat generation, every watt that you put into that place is heat, and that same watt has to be removed through your air conditioning. No geothermal. You're not going to use geothermal. It's going to be air conditioning.
Well, I think you're probably going to get the same answer from the gentleman as you did on the
Because I think it makes a
fuel.
difference in the watershed area. The reason I ask that is I just happened to look at the brook flowing into Spring Lake today, and as dry it has been, the brook is still flowing into Spring Lake. So there's one heck of an aquifer up there. So just want to make that comment.
Sir, I appreciate you raising that issue.
The other thing about Spring Lake, and this doesn't really have to do with the immediate thing, Spring Lake is still filling up with silt rapidly. Especially this spring, we had a few rainstorms. It's still coming in muddy. Now for about, we're pushing a quarter of the lake. Where I used to watch duck and geese, I watch deer. There's deer walking around out there grazing. It's about 4 or 5 houses worth down the road. So that's maybe a different issue. I know we're, again, talking about the entire watershed, but it seems to be we're focused on that area that's between Muddy River, 91, the Hilton, and our neighborhood. The dead center of that parcel is about 2,000 feet from me, and I'm not the closest. There's a lot of houses that are probably well within 1,000 feet. The noise. About 2 years ago, during the winter, sitting in the house, I hear a buzzing, humming. I really didn't know what it was, didn't think much about it, but it kept up. Because it was winter, we were in the house, and every time I let the dog out, I would hear it. In wintertime, we didn't really care much about it. Summer comes along. My wife could not even sit on the back porch, on the deck. She ended up wearing industrial earmuffs. And she really got fed up. I thought we were going to have to move. Got talking to the neighbors. It wasn't only us. It was 3, 4 houses down. They were sleeping at night with ear protection. Finally, the city was called, and 2 guys from the electric division stopped. There was 5 of us standing on the edge of the lake trying to figure out where this noise was coming from. And I'm pointing over there and pointing over there. We're guessing maybe the quarry is doing something. Or maybe the rifle range is doing something. It went from, one of the electric guys said, I think it's a sump pump. A little while later, no, that could be Bitcoin operator, Bitcoin mining. I mean, the buzzing continued, and they were going to investigate it. They left, they drove around. I walked through all that area. I can only hear it from our side of the lake. It was the strangest thing. It went away about 8 months later. We don't know what it was. It wasn't a loud noise. It was a very irritating noise, a humming. The highway is much louder. Blue Trail, much louder. So just the decibel is not the whole key to, for enforcement of noise. It's just vibrations. Now, Which brings me up to the Wallingford, the ordinance. I probably read these things too many times, but I'm looking at the 144, Section 6, I believe it was, exemptions. Obviously, the Blue Trail, there's 10, 15 exemptions. Blue Trail is in there, but one of them really bothers me. Number 10. Utilities, including phone companies and other sources, are exempt from noise. It's the other sources that bothers me. I'd like a little clarification on that. Does that include the data center?
As far
Does that include
as far
the
as
data?
being exempt from noise ordinance?
Yes. It's line 10.
No, they wouldn't be exempt from the noise ordinance.
I hope.
Correct?
Okay. And if they're not, the next paragraph is a violation. $60 a day. Not very much. Just another cost of doing business. I made a note. There was something that came up that I wanted to question. I'm sorry. Again, to that parcel of land we're talking about.
When you say the parcel of land, sir, we're
Parcel of
talking about
land-
the entire
Well, the one that looks like
WI zone. That's what we're
well, the
talking
one
about,
that
sir.
looks like it's being aimed at right now. The one off of Williams Road, between Williams and 91. It's got about a 60-foot elevation up and down, over 1,000 feet. Again, I'm worried about what's going to happen when they try to level it out, what ends up flowing down the river. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, gentleman here. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Okay, we have two more individuals.
Hello, my name is Scott Gray, and I live at 14 Oxford Trail in Wallingford. Thank you guys for allowing us to speak. It's nice to be here again, talking about the same thing again. He says that with a lot of sarcasm. So as a citizen, I find this really frustrating. We already went through this crap a couple of years ago, and here we are with the same thing. You guys did a great job back then, hearing all these angles and elements and legal terms being jumbled around and all that stuff, and had to sit through all of us trying to maintain composure and speaking publicly, something that makes us all nervous. You guys are pros at it, but it's not something we're comfortable doing, but yet we take time out from our lives to come here, our neighbors, and let you know how we feel. And we really appreciated that you gave us that opportunity then and are doing it now, and that we all agreed on the zoning issue last time, that a data center does not belong in this part of town. So it's really frustrating to have to go through all this again. Why are we doing it again? I don't understand. I mean, we make a rule, we make a zoning restriction, limit, whatever you want to call it, and somebody comes along and they say they want to change it. So somebody earlier said, what's the point of making the rule if you're just going to look at it again in a couple of years? So I strongly encourage you guys to come out with a big fat no. Just happened to have put my sign up there knowing that it would be in the TV screen. Pretty good, huh? The other side of it says no, just plain old no. I'll turn that around later.
We saw that when you came in, sir.
Yeah, so when you guys were watching this on TV, I know you'll be bored and you won't want to watch the Monday Night Football next week. People at home will be looking at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Sir, if we could just please focus on your comments rather
Oh,
than your
come
sign,
on.
that would be great.
All right, I got
Thank
2
you.
pages and I just finished the first bullet. So, moving forward, yeah, you guys denied this for good reason, so why are we doing it again? But that was bullet 2. Bullet 3, the economic development in Wallingford, they push for anything. As long as it brings in a little bit of possible coin, they're going to push for it. They don't care what impacts it has. They've proven that. My next bullet. Yeah, the agreed upon stipulations that we talked about. So Mr. Allison said, perhaps if you guys come back next time, you can bring forth some better proposals and some particular stipulations. I just want to remind you that it was about a year or so ago that we were here talking about zoning to allow, I think that might have also been an exemption for an automobile transport business over on Research Parkway. Does anyone remember that? And yeah, well, I do. And one of the stipulations for them to do that, they said that they would only bring their automobiles to this point. They would be unloaded from one vehicle and put on another, and they would leave and go off in their direction. It was just kind of be like a transit distribution center, that no vehicles would be stored there. And you know what happens today when you drive down Research Avenue or Parkway and take a look at that site? There's always vehicles stored there. There's 4 or 5 of those big semis that are loaded up with 10 cars, and they're sitting there all the time. So that's what happens with stipulations. They sound really good on paper. It makes it look good, perhaps gives some legitimacy to approving the project, but then people go out and do what they want to do. My next bullet is about the sounds and the noises. We're talking about constant, low-frequency, ambient noise. It really can't be measured. It's not like a crack of a baseball bat at Yankee Stadium that emits a certain amount of decibels. It's a low, rumbling noise that you feel in your body that you're not even aware of what's happening, but it's there. These low-frequency ambient noises cause stress. It's been proven scientifically that it causes stress in people and animals. Animals, we heard other citizens talking about nature. Animals are way more sensitive to that than we are. So I live near 91. You can hear it. It's a real pain in the ass. You hear it all the time. The prevailing winds are from the west, so we hear it 90% of the times. You know, I can lay on my couch in my basement, where you cannot hear 91. But you know what? You can feel it. You can feel it. You can feel that rumble. And that can't be measured. There's no way to monitor that. That's exactly what a data center emits, is that low frequency rumble that you can't pinpoint that drives people crazy. And these are the reasons that this project was, or that this data center issue was denied last time. So here we are again. The noise thing, I've heard it been stated that, well, you've already got 91 there, so there's just going to be a little bit more noise. It'll be within the noise requirements. Well, who the hell wants more noise? Why aren't we looking for less noise? It's like saying, it's like making it into a medical equation and say, hey, you over there, you've got a tumor. That's really, I'm really sorry that you have a tumor. So we're going to introduce just a little cancer over here. You've already got the tumor. So it's kind of like, that's what we're talking about. More noise. We don't want it. Of course, our property values will all decline. there is no doubt that if you live within a half mile of a data center, your property value will decline. Tax revenue, the Economic Development Commission wants this tax money. It's my understanding that the tax revenue has, that this state incentive, that there's a significant postponement of taxes. So will your client be exempt from taxes, and if so, for how long?
If you gentlemen would like to answer that question.
The state program allows certain tax savings through the development process, but taxes or the equivalent payments to the town are regulated under a hosting agreement that is to be negotiated between the developer and the town, that provides for very, very, very significant revenues to the town, and then when augmented by the revenues to be received by Wallingford Electric on top of the energy costs, the numbers are quite striking.
Thank you.
Man, was that ever an attorney answer?
Sir, let's just focus on your comments and
Okay.
forget the editorializing.
Sorry, I don't get this chance often.
I know, but
All right, so-
make good use of your time.
I am. Watershed protection, you know, we're right, as everyone's mentioned, it's right smack in the middle of a watershed that it looks like a little stream sometimes it's bigger, but it is our watershed supplier. And we all know that climate disruption is here. There's no denying that, especially if you have friends that live in North Carolina or Florida. Climate disruption is bringing in uncharted changes. You know, we have tremendous rainfall amounts. How many 100-year storms have we had in the last 3 years? And then all of a sudden we have a drought. So we've had like no rain at all in September and October. August, July, June, we had tremendous amounts of rain. So all these climatic cycling things come right through this district, this WI district, which is, as people have already testified about the level of wetlands that are in there. And we're going to be putting in an industrial facility. That doesn't sound very smart. Excessive power usage, obviously, these things are huge power consumers. And I have a fear that if this was to be there and they were running their operation, sucking in all this power, that it's going to alter our town's very unique, homegrown kind of electrical system that we have. We're very, very fortunate in Wallingford to have our own electrical division, and I'm afraid that this will overwhelm it or somehow compromise it. It's also, these facilities also consume huge amounts of water. So that's another concern that I have. Charter development is talking about only purchasing, or they're asking for the zoning change so that they can purchase some land in there and then lease it. And one of the statements that I heard one of these fine gentlemen make was, well, we don't know who exactly what's going to be in there, et cetera. They will do what they will do. So, you know, if that's the attitude that we're hearing today, how can we be sure what will be occurring at a later stage in the game? And, you know, I'll conclude by saying a couple of points. I agree with Ed Bradley. The best thing that the town of Wallingford can do with this tract of land, I know we're talking about exempting the zoning for this big, larger chunk of land, but, you know, these guys have a bullseye on a certain part of it. It's the exact same spot that the prior data center had their bullseye on within this zone. So the best thing that the town of Wallingford can do is to purchase this property and put it aside as open space. It's right in the middle where there's all kinds of crap around it, but it's a beautiful little gem of forested, varied terrain, lots of wetland, 2 or 3 streams come together, join the Muddy River back in there. It's a beautiful place. Let's have the town of Wallingford purchase this land, make it open space, and protect it rather than figure out the best way that we can ruin it. And Spring Lake was ruined by Bristol Myers, unfortunately. And I agree with Joan, who said that if these guys want to get a data center going, look for the appropriate place for it. Research Parkway, the guys over at Bristol Myers didn't want to negotiate. Well, if you drive down Research Parkway, there's probably 4 or 5 other vacant buildings, if not more. So put the data center in an industrial zone where there's no residents, where it belongs. And can probably hear it in my voice. I'm really angry that we're going through this again. So please just deny this. Thank you.
Sir, I just make one comment. You know, as far as, you know, purchasing the land, that's obviously you know, an issue that Planning and Zoning Commission has nothing to do with. If you and other members of the public feel strongly about that, I would say go to the town council and you know, and voice your
Thank you.
your opinion.
Right, but I believe probably everybody who's here, with a few exceptions, are Wallingford residents. So why don't we do that? Let's purchase this land.
Well, again, I would say go to the town council if you'd like. That's
So we'll,
let's
all take that
that's
up.
all.
Thank you.
That's certainly your option. That's a tough act to follow, sir.
Don Crouch, Economic Development Specialist, also a resident. I'm not going to go into the letter. You guys have that. Just the one point I wanted to bring up about the setbacks. Definitely want to have a conversation. I know we changed the setbacks in the IX over the last couple of years, so we don't have these big parcels of manicured grass and upkeep. So I would like to just, you know, as long as we keep it reasonable. I think the other point is it is a good use for the WI. It's low impact. You know, every time we've had warehouses, different projects come through town, I think we have to be mindful of other projects that might want to use that land. So this is a good use of the land for that particular site. But just want to remind everybody, this is a long, go back to, you know, the Yankees. It's a long game. This is like the first inning, you know. So zone text change, I mean, first we have to allow it. You guys know that. I'm just kind of reiterating for everyone else. Then there's a host agreement, PUC agreement, agreements with the state on their end of it, inland wetlands, planning and zoning again. So, you know, siting council. So there's a lot to a project like this. And there's a lot of steps that will take into account the environment, water, noise. So just want to reiterate that it is a long process, but hopefully the zoning text change, you guys could work that out.
Thank you, sir. And I believe the gentleman in the back, after this individual, anyone else that would like to speak? We're not getting second bites of the apple.
Hi, Thomas Ringrose,
Just for 1 minute. Yeah, as far as he'll be the last gentleman.
675 Williams Road. Yeah, I think this is, it's an economic, I think 20 years from now, this $100 million facility it'll produce $10, $20 million a year for the town. I just got a call the other day for financial services. They do products all over United States, varied, and except for And they said, what state in? I said, Connecticut. Oh, by law, they're not allowed to do business in Connecticut. The future of Connecticut, unfortunately, guys, is housing. So I don't know if you guys know this, but, you know, once you guys are older, you're not going to be around that long. But as far as toxicity and harmonics, long-range gas pipelines, they've had to baffle. And the windmills, they've had dead animals around. 5G, this is for 5G and 6G. You know, and this facility will be built with NVIDIA chips, which aren't even designed now. They'll be optical. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but that's the future. It won't be you know, as we think of it today, but you know, yeah, it'll be but you know, if Wallingford doesn't get it, Meerden down the road will get it. But Research Parkway, if you didn't read the Record Journal, is going toward housing, right? That's the Piercombe building, right? So, all right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yes, with that, I will bring it back to the applicant. You certainly heard comments from the commission. You've heard comments from the public. Certainly, as I mentioned, we're not going to be taking any action on this evening. I would simply say, and I'm sure you will, absorb everything that's been said this evening, and when you come back, we could have further discussions and see exactly what you may have taken notice of, what you may not have, and we'll continue it till next month. Would you gentlemen, like to make some further comments?
Thank you very much. And I apologize for having my back to the people attending, but that's where the microphone is. But I want to thank everyone from Wallingford who came tonight and expressed some truly heartfelt concerns. This is your community. Many of you have lived here a long time. There are problems that have happened from other developments that you're still suffering from. And there are concerns you have based upon this multi-building, multi-year mega project that was proposed and had a hearing in 2022. As I said, Eric and I were at that hearing. We understand the concerns. We understand the depth of the concerns. We genuinely believe that we have come up with a better mousetrap, something that will work well in this community, something that will be a good citizen in this community, and once it's built and operating, will be innocuous. People won't even know it's there. We look forward to continuing the conversation and meeting with you and the public again next month.
Okay. With that, I'd entertain unless there's other commission members who would like to make any final comments. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like to make a few comments. You know, I started my comments, you know, with a few questions, and I focused on this low-level frequency noise, and several members of the public also commented on that. I would like to see your acoustic firm, you said best in the business, comment on what they feel these data centers produce as far as low-level frequencies. You know, part of this text amendment does talk about, you know, meeting the noise ordinance, but the low-level frequency should also be part of this text amendment. Whether there's, you know, design measures and, you know, setbacks from, you know, existing businesses and homeowners, you know, I think that also needs to be part of this text amendment. One of the things we run into with, you know, if you get down the road to an actual site application is going back and forth on, well, we're going to fit this in 500 feet from, the neighbors on the east, 1,000 feet on the west. We've had those discussions on other applications, and I'd like to see, what the actual recommendation is as part of the text. And again, you said you had this great acoustic firm. They should be able to comment on, what the standards are. And again, any type of design specifications, a double-walled data center. So I'd like to see that as far as, something in the text amendment. There were a lot of comments about, the district itself, the watershed interchange. And to Mr. Pagini, our town planner, I did not see any water department comments yet for this text amendment change. I did see, a few comments from departments, including engineering. I don't know if Allison is speaking on behalf of the water department, but I don't believe she is. And I know in the past, and we just purchased a lot of land off Williams Road for, protecting Muddy River and Mackenzie Reservoir. So I'd like to get a definitive statement from the water department about a 350,000 square foot building plus additional ancillary buildings, in this district. And finally, my counterpart, Mr. Fitzsimmons, is not here. He usually makes a comment like this, but I'm going to make it tonight. This commission does not take into consideration any financial concerns as far as applications. And a lot of comments, especially from the applicant and the memorandum we got from the EDC mentioned financial benefits to the town. That's not our concern. We don't take that into consideration to approve or disapprove any applications. With that being said, I would like to ask my own financial question, because everybody else has, so I want to ask one. And I'm going to ask this to the town planner through you, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. And if anybody knows the answer to this, feel free, because I do not know the answer. The building and the land will be taxed. My question is, are the servers and disk drives internal in the data center, are those taxed? I assume some of the business equipment as far as the servers are probably taxed, but this data center is really going to be disk drives, solid state disk drives. There's going to be a few computers, and I don't believe disk drives will be taxed. And that's what's going to be in this data center. So that's my question.
Yeah,
How much revenue do we get from inside this building? My guess is not very much. So, Mr. Pagini, if you could, ask the tax guy.
I could ask the assessor's office for that information.
But again, as you said, that has no bearing on.
But that has no
we
bearing.
decide
But a citizen would like to know. Thank you.
All right, with that, I guess I would entertain a motion to, maybe you'll have a chance at the next meeting for comments. We've already,
One sentence, do they realize that we all have well water? They talk about the wetlands. Do the builders know? We have wells.
I suspect that they're aware of what's on the property.
Everything will
Yes, thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion, and again, I don't mean to be rude, but we've given everybody an opportunity to speak. With that, I'd entertain a motion to continue this to our next meeting in November.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue application 501-24, zoning text amendment, WI Zone Data Center, Charter Development LLC to the November Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rivard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Mr. Bradley, just to let you know, at the next meeting, wherever you may be seating, I will seek you out first. Okay, with that, gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you next month. All right, it brings us to the next item on our agenda. It's a new business item. It's a site plan for 5 Technology Drive, Biotech, addition to an existing building. Again, if the applicant would please come forward to begin preparing for his presentation. And Mr. Allenson, would you please note all correspondence for the record?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have an inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department dated September 5th, 2024. An interoffice memorandum from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated October 3rd, 2024. A memorandum from David Zayeks to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated October 8th, 2024. There appears to be several attachments to that document.
Here's the next one. Those are all part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. A memorandum from the Department of Engineering to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated October 11th, 2024. Thank you. And a memorandum from Aaron O'Hare, Environmental Planner, to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated October 11th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. And at this point in time, would the applicant and/or its representatives please introduce themselves and begin their presentation?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Dave Zayeks. I am a professional engineer and principal with F.A. Hesketh & Associates. We are a civil engineering firm up in East Granby and prepared the site plan before you this evening. With me this evening is Rich Kaiser, principal with CHK Architects, and Karen Panone, sitting in the center here, who's also an architect with CHK, who's been heavily involved in the project. This is over at 5 Technology Drive, which is a lot of 14.02 acres. It is in your WI zone, the watershed interchange zone. And we have on the screen an overlay of the addition, which is the sort of orange color box on the right-hand side, and the white roof is the existing building that's on the site. And you can see the parking located around the building. Right now, the building is owned by Biotech, which is an office and laboratory space. It is the current building's 52,668 square feet. It's a one-story building. There's about 200 parking spaces for employees on the site, and a small truck loading facility over on the north side of the building, which is up on this drawing. There are 2 driveways. One goes to the cul-de-sac, which is Technology Drive, and there's another driveway down onto Carpenter Lane at the bottom of the drawing. The proposal this evening is to put an addition on the easterly side of the building, again, which would be the outline of that orange building. 54,989 square feet, which would bring the total square footage on the site to 107,657 square feet. We'd have proposed parking for employees and visitors of 210 spaces, which meets the zoning code. And there'll be some redesigning of the loading area in that north corner of the building to better accommodate the few trucks that they do get. There'll be some redesigning of the parking lot on that north side of the building just to accommodate the addition and that reconfigured entrance and loading area. As we talked about, or if you folks have been talking about this evening, is in the watershed interchange area, one of the primary considerations is stormwater and handling of that. I can assure you, we went through the inland wetlands process, and as Mr. Bragini pointed out, you have the last round of memorandum from staff, but we spent a great deal of time reviewing both the existing storm drainage system on the site and the changes that we're going to make. We're going to be building a fifth water quality basin on the site. There's currently 4 of them on the site now. And I think we did reach consensus with everyone that we have a good design. The Wetlands Commission approved the project, and you have comments from your water district and from your town engineer indicating that the design is acceptable as presented. We do have a thorough erosion control plan because in constructing this addition we have to cut into the slope on the easterly side. So really the building on the east side sort of acts like a retaining wall in addition to being a foundation and wall of the building. So I think it's a fairly clever use of the property without a lot of disturbance into that easterly wooded area on the site. So there is a phased erosion control plan that we worked out with staff, built into the plan set. And I think one of the comments from a couple of sources was that you make a condition that there be third-party review of the site and monthly reports to the staff regarding observations of erosion and the excavation during construction, which we have no problem with. There's very few landscaping changes. There's some islands that are just being shuffled around a bit. The landscaping on the site is mature now, in particular where the detention ponds are. And so there's not a lot of changes as far as landscaping, not a lot of changes regarding site lighting. The lighting was updated a number of years ago by the owner, and there's just a little bit of reshuffling around of existing light standards on the site, but really no new additional lighting being proposed. A couple of the other topics. With traffic, this is an interesting site in that it's actually part of the much larger Medway Business Park that was started in 1985. So this 14 acres is a small portion of that, but it's in the OSTA certificate, so the certificate has to be updated, as it has been about every 5 years by others involved with within the area of what was known as Medway Business Park back then. So we've applied to OSTA for an administrative decision. As I indicated in my memo to staff, we are under the 100 trips per day trip for elevating this up to a special permit, and we provided the information to staff for review. This actually will result in, using pure ITE standards, which tend to be pretty conservative. We're looking at the possibility of like 40 additional trips in the morning, 40 additional trips in the afternoon from new employees. As far as the staff comments go, I've had an opportunity to review those and the recommendations from your planner as far as conditions of approval, and we have no difficulties with any of that as far as if you want to make those conditions of approval. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to the folks at CHK to give you a little idea about the new architecture that the building will have.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Panone. I'm an architect with CHK Architects. This is a plan of the existing building. As Dave mentioned, it's 52,668 square feet. This is a plan of the existing building with the addition attached to it. The addition is shown in the beige color. The addition consists of office space, some laboratories, a clean room, and a warehouse space in the back, which also has a loading dock area. For the addition, we created 2 schemes for the exterior elevations. So I'm going to talk about the architectural design intent of the exterior elevations. So the first scheme, Scheme A, we used a combination of aluminum composite panels and new brick, which would match the existing brick in style and color. This reddish color are the aluminum composite panels. And down here is the new brick, which would match the existing brick. If I zoom out a little bit, you can get a view of the existing building. So the existing construction on the existing building is a metal panel fascia up here, and then traditional brick on the lower part of the building. In Scheme 2, we also used aluminum composite panels, but entirely. So instead of using traditional brick infill, we're proposing to use aluminum composite panels in a running bond pattern, which is shown down here. The running bond pattern creates a symbolic reference to masonry construction. So in both of these proposed schemes for the elevation, visual interest is created through the use of color and also through the detailing or joinery of the metal panels. We're proposing to use a copper-colored metal panel called russet mica, which complements the color of the existing brick. I'm going to jump over to show you a photograph of the existing building. You can see where there's a metal panel fascia on top and traditional brick on the bottom of the building. So in our schematic designs here, we've also retained the dimensions of the existing building. This new soffit, the columns, the height of the building addition, all of those match the height of the existing building. So the horizontal and vertical lines of the addition and the slope surfaces are all carried through to the new addition, and they mimic what is already there from the existing building. We've also shown some reveals in the aluminum composite panels, which help to lend some visual interest to the elevations. So these proposed elevations are using aluminum composite panels. Aluminum composite panels are a cladding system. They go over the top of a continuously insulated wall barrier. And it should be mentioned that we've chosen to use aluminum composite panels on the front entry of the building, facing Carpenter Lane. So that's where the aesthetic appearance is most important. So along this face of the building, along this side, the left side, and also along the right side. Then on the sides, in the rear of the building addition, we've chosen to use concrete ground face masonry units. It should be mentioned that the longest face of the building is partially buried into the slope of the site. So that's another reason for using ground face masonry on the long face of the building. If I go back to the floor plan, the masonry is along the east side of the building over here. Okay, so with ground face masonry, each of the masonry units are ground on one or more of its faces, which gives a rich and unique appearance to the block. The aggregate becomes exposed, and a range of colors and textures are provided within the block itself. We've also created a pattern with the masonry on that side of the building. Which you can see a little bit over here. The darker masonry color is at the bottom, and that sort of grounds the building. And then there's a natural progression into lighter masonry at the top. So masonry becomes lighter and more refined. So the use of more than one material in the building design not only creates visual interest, but in this case, it's an economical use of materials. The ground face masonry units also tie in well with the existing brick. This is a close-up of the aluminum composite panel in the russet mica color, which is a coppery tone. We're proposing to use that along with the ground face masonry units. So the colors we have chosen are warm or warm neutral colors that coordinate with the color palette of the existing building. We believe that the building addition fits within the context. It draws upon the design of the existing building while improving the aesthetic appearance and also offering subtle visual appeal. This is a rendering of the exterior of the addition. And another rendering showing the addition side by side with the new building, with the existing building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Commission members with questions for the applicant. Yes, Mr. Sanders.
So just a minor question. I realize that perhaps Inland and Wetlands asked and you worked on this with them. And I understand that our purview is not to relitigate Inland and Wetlands, so that's not what I'm doing here. But notice that the new building proposed invades the buffer impact area in basin number 1 and was wondering why.
It's just a matter of, making the building functional and the size that the owners need for the addition. So it was either dig further into the slope or maybe encroach a little bit on that detention pond. And I think everybody reached consensus that that was okay. It's a man-made detention pond, so as a resource, it's important, but not any more so than maybe the nice heavily wooded slope to the east.
I would think that that's there for a reason, though. It didn't look like it encroached very far. I was wondering, is it possible to adjust the plan so that the building maybe shifts a little bit toward what would be the vertical and in the drawing there, just to avoid encroaching on that? I'm sure that buffer zone is there for a good reason.
Well, it's sort of called a buffer, but it's really a regulated area. It's not really intended to be a pure buffer around a detention pond. But again, this was exhaustively reviewed by the environmental folks, and we reached consensus that this was a reasonable plan. So I hate to move the building further to the north and dig further into the slope and cut more trees down. It just doesn't, as a trade-off, this seems like a good approach.
Thanks. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Pagini, any comments on the application?
I just wanted to clarify, it'll be weekly inspection reports for the erosion and sediment control.
Okay.
Not monthly.
And as far as just one thing, as far as the traffic and the traffic, I won't say a report, but the traffic analysis, my understanding was that's been reviewed by our town engineer, and she finds that acceptable, correct?
Yes, I thought she mentioned it in her memo, but
I know she mentioned she mentioned the various things that she had reviewed or documents. Okay. With that, this is not a public hearing, but we do allow members of the public to comment. We have one gentleman from the public. I'm not sure if he'd like to comment or not. If he would, please raise his hand and come forward. If not, he can just leisurely sit there. And I take it he's taking that option. With the applicant, there's no further questions from the commission. If the applicant would like to make any final comments, feel free. If not, I would entertain a motion, so it's up to you, sir, if you'd like to make any further comments.
No, I think we're all set. Like I said, we've worked extensively with staff for quite some time on this, and it's been very professional experience. Thank you.
Good. All right. At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 215-24, site plan approval request to construct a 54,989 square foot addition at the existing manufacturing facility on plans entitled Biotech Corp., 5 Technology Drive, dated March 22nd, 2024, and revised to August 9th, 2024, with the following conditions. 1, comments from the Environmental Planning, Aaron O'Hare, dated 10/11/2024. 2, comments from the Senior Engineer, Scott Shipment, Water and Sewer Division, dated 10/3/2024. 3, comments from Town Engineer Allison Kapuczynski, dated 10/11/2024. 4, comments from the Fire Marshal, dated 9/5/2024. 5, final version of the Operations and Maintenance Plan, Stormwater Report, and Traffic Information Memorandum to be printed and submitted to the Department of Engineering for filing. 6, Operating and Maintenance Plan or Notice of said plan to be filed on Wallingford land records. 7, sediment inspections of the sediment and erosion control shall be conducted throughout the construction process, and reported of those inspections shall be submitted to the town planner. Additional erosion and sediment control measures shall be implemented and or installed throughout the course of construction and deemed necessary and directed by the design engineer and or Wallingford town officials. And 8, erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $15,500. And 9, 6 copies of final plans forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office.
We have a motion on the application. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rivard. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application's been approved. And if you thank the applicant for expanding business in Wallingford.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
And with that, Mr. Pagini, I'll turn the meeting over to you to continue the rest of our agenda.
Bond release for 7 Brew. The site looks good, so I would recommend release of that bond.
At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to release the bond for 7 Brew based upon the recommendation from our town planner.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we release the bond for application 403-24, Kapoor 905 North Colony Road, 7 Brew.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rivard. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes. And Mr. Pagini, if you'd continue, please.
Administrative approvals, any questions on those? September ZBA decisions, any questions on those? And October ZBA agenda, I do have the documentation in your packets regarding the appeal of the zoning enforcement officer, and we are requesting a vote to issue a report by the commission to deny that appeal from the applicant.
If you could just I know, we have some information from our zoning enforcement officer, but, just maybe for the benefit of the public, just to give a quick summation as far as what the Cliff Notes.
Essentially, I'll try to remember. So it's appeal of the decision of the ZEO, no zoning sign-off to issue a building permit to rebuild an illegal dwelling unit. The property is currently in violation for illegal dwelling units. July 2024, stop work order was issued for the building permit, result of complaint from neighbor for unpermitted demo and reconstruction of illegal dwelling unit and upper story of Cape Cod dwelling. one of two units. Unit 2 is a 3-bedroom, 6-room ranch home attached to barn at 386 Williams Road. Also included in the stop work order was violation of housing code for occupancy of accessory structure, referred to P&Z for violation. Property owner called P&Z for details, claimed the legal unit predated zoning. At a search of the assessor's records, building permit history, and tax records from the 1950s through 1970s identifies single-family dwelling on the property. There was no record of an accessory unit or second dwelling unit in our records. Unclear when from 1985 to 2000, assessor became aware of the second occupancy in the main house. The dwelling unit on second partial story of Cape did not have proper access for building or fire code compliance and would not be permitted for construction or reconstruction for the same reason. The only access was from the exterior stairs. There was no connection to the first floor interior. The property also appeared to have occupancy in the ranch attached to the barn. Property owner was advised there can be no dwelling unit in the accessory barn, but could attempt to legalize the main house second-story dwelling unit as an accessory apartment. The owner states that no owner occupancy plans, so accessory apartment would not be possible. Claims legal two-family, claims storage is only occurring in the accessory structure. The research that she did uncovered a variance denial in January of 2002 for the residential use of the accessory barn, so that would be the 6-room attached ranch house. And the 2004 application again submitted for residential use of accessory structure but withdrawn. Minutes and records from the 2002 variance denial revealed the zoning violation for the residential use of accessory structures in the 1990s and mention of possible illegal unit in main house upper story. Further research unveiled subdivision creating the existing lot at 386 Williams Road was approved in February of 1976, and the accessory structure was omitted from the subdivision map and plan as it would have created a non-conforming lot. Single-family dwelling on undivided larger farming plot before 1976 and representation of same for subdivision. Submitted plans with variance denial in 2002 had accessory structures sketched in on same subdivision map. So that's a basically.
Yeah, Mr. Pagini, I think that'll do.
Brief synopsis.
We appreciate your brief summation.
A little confusing, but.
Any commission members have any comments with respect to this request? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on my reading of this, I do believe the due diligence was done by the zoning enforcement officer, and it looks like a pretty solid decision to me.
I think other commission members would agree to that. If I'm wrong, please speak up. So what the zoning enforcement officer would just simply like is a report out of this commission indicating that we would support the denial of the appeal. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Anyone would like to make a motion concerning that? And a kind of a brief one.
As you said, so moved. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we,
Report out.
what's that?
Report out to the,
We report out to the zoning enforcement,
to the ZBA, zoning.
hold on, so let me redo this. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve a report out by the zoning.
Or to the.
So you're like.
Yeah.
1 second, please.
No, we just want to report out to the ZBA, zoning board of appeals, that we support the officer's denial of the appeal. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the report out to the Zoning Board of Appeals to support the zoning enforcement officer's denial of the appeal.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Rivard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Mr. Pagini, if I'm correct, that'll bring us to the end of our meeting?
That's correct.
At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, October 16th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rivard. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.